Welcome, and this is Impact 2022. It's our continuing conversation where we talk about different issues, current events, talk about issues that are happening in our life from different perspectives. And so, this is an opportunity to where we can have a conversation back and forth and where you can participate in the conversation. We encourage you to do so. And so, as you see down at the bottom, you can type in your questions into the comment section. And as those questions and comments arise, we will address them. And so, as the conversation goes on, please feel free. Type in however you feel and whatever opinion you may have, and it will be addressed as it comes up. Just as a little reminder for anybody who's typing in live, there is a tiny bit of a delay. So if I don't get to your question right away, I will be getting to it. So don't be shocked if it takes a couple of minutes for me to get to your question. Always neglect to bring that point up, but it's a point nonetheless that needs to be brought up. And so, like always, we go into directly what's going on. Today will be a current event issue. And like it has been for the past couple of weeks, I'm going to explain the issue and as we dive into it. So buckle up and take a little bit of a journey with me as I explain and then get to the issue at hand. And so it would be crazy to think that we were going to talk about anything other than the largest story that is out here today, and that is the Russia-Ukraine conflict. But we're not truly talking about the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And what we're talking about is some of the reaction to the Russian-Ukraine conflict. And for those of you who don't know, about a week ago, Russia invaded Ukraine. Unprompted, I'll say. That's the general consensus, that it was unprompted and that Russia invaded Ukraine for the reasons that they've given, but basically a control thing and whatnot. We're not going to really go into the details of the politics of it or anything such as that. And it has been condemned pretty much worldwide. So people across the world have condemned the actions of Russia having a military invasion of Ukraine. And as a result of that action, there's been numerous and swift response. And that response includes sanctions from governments, especially the United States. It has been the pause or cancellation of business deals and business dealings. Just today, the United States announced that it would no longer be receiving Russian oil, a major hit to Russia, who provides large amounts of oil to the United States, and also a hit for the United States, where we've lost one of our larger suppliers of oil. And so we've taken on some personal pain, I will say, to support another country. And many other countries have done the same, where they're taking on some personal pain. Germany and Russia had a pipeline, an oil pipeline deal that they were working out, where they were developing a pipeline which would supply the energy needs of Germany and also other countries in Europe. And those have been put on pause, temporary cancellation, if not permanent. And so this is what you see across the world. Specifically, though, and what we're talking about today specifically is the response of the United States of private businesses. You know, in the past, private businesses take a long view, oftentimes, to conflict. When you think back to the 80s, and you think back to the apartheid movement in South Africa and the numerous companies that kept having dealings, even with the public outcry about apartheid in South Africa. And so it took a long time till Pepsi actually stepped up to make a declaration of shutting down operations before there really was any kind of movement. And so it was a long process. And as some of the people, historians and business historians, noted today, that there's usually not a swift action from businesses. You can wait it out, long-term wait it out. However, the climate has changed. It's been different. So to kind of speed ahead, what's happened is one of the largest franchisees in Russia, McDonald's, has decided to pause all operations in Russia. McDonald's has been there for over 30 years. They have 850 different locations. Every one of them is shut down right now. So if you're a Russian man, you're not getting your McDonald's hamburgers and fries because they've shut it down. Starbucks has decided to pause shipments of paraphernalia, beans, and other things to their over 130 locations. Coke and Pepsi have decided to pause or put the clamps down on some of their operations in Russia as well. Yum Brands, who owns Taco Bell, KFC, all of these other operations, they have also decided to pause operations. And so you see company after company after company, organization to organization that is deciding to pause or limit services in Russia because of their activities. And the question is, why did they do this? The answer is simple. There was the threat of pressure from people on social media. It was the threat of a boycott. There were hashtags going around like hashtag boycott this business or hashtag boycott that business. And that was enough pressure in just a week's time for these companies to shut down operations in a whole entire country. So, as always, why is that interesting for this conversation? Why is that interesting? Why did I bring that up? Why does anybody care to know about that? Well, I'm going to take it selfishly from a United States African American point of view. And what does that mean? Well, it is ironic to me that these companies will shut down operations in a whole nother country just from the threat. There hasn't even been a boycott. The threat of a boycott, the threat of social media starting a hashtag, not even really anything going on. The threats that have shut down operations in a country just like that in a week. However, why is it that in 2020, it took a person being shot and killed live on television and took numerous protests, numerous protests, numerous demonstrations for companies to even make a statement about the injustices here. It makes you wonder a little bit, but that's not even the conversation. The conversation is, why can't we, people who believe in justice here, social justice, people who believe in reforms here, people who believe in racial justice here, why can't we get those companies to move in the same fashion? What is the issue or what is the problem with us being able to move that along? And I say to you, the difference is the threat. These companies were scared because of how it looked, and they were scared because they knew that young people would get together and galvanize. And I say young people because that's usually who does it. Get together and galvanize and basically could shut things down. And that was something that in the community, especially when we're talking about race relations in the African American community, that was a power that we used to have. And I wonder, where did that power go, or why we don't have that power, but yet just the threat of Ukraine can have that power. Now, some people will sit back and they'll say, hey man, this is purely a race issue. It's Ukraine, these people are white, and so the companies are responding to the pains of white individuals. But they call it, they have different names for it, but we'll call it the one of the better ones is the white damsel in distress. They say that when you look at the news media, when you look at the world, that they jump for a white damsel in distress when it's a young white lady, preferably blonde hair. That the media, that the world bends over backwards for that situation. And that's what you may be looking at in Ukraine. The question is, why can't we get that kind of movement here in the United States? Selfishly, why can't we boycotts or our threat of a boycott cause companies to react the way that they've reacted with Ukraine? And my answer that I'll give you is because they know that we won't boycott. They know that we won't give up anything for our cause. They know that we won't sacrifice for our cause. They know that we don't have the ability to put down anything for our cause. And regardless of race, regardless of age, if our cause is the cause of the lives of Black individuals at the hands of police, if our cause is being able to vote, if our cause is being able to just have equal opportunities, they know that we won't sacrifice or stop and do what's needed in order to push across our cause. We will definitely protest, as they can see. We will definitely raise the issue. We will definitely talk about it. But we won't not go to McDonald's or Starbucks. We will not drink Coke or Pepsi. We will not go to Yum Brands, which is KFC and Taco Bell. We won't sacrifice that. And ironically, for the Ukraine situation, they didn't even have to sacrifice it. All they had to do was threaten it. And so, for people who don't believe the church is important, but they believe that, but they understand what we're saying, or what I'm saying here when we're talking about the cause and we're talking about social justice and we're talking about social change. When people who think that it is wrong that the way the justice system is set up, whether it comes to policing, whether it comes to how the incarceration rates for the same crime is higher for people of color than it is for others. If you believe that our voting rights for people of color are being systematically stolen and taken away by legislation that is being brought out here. For people who believe that, let me say this to you. In order to get change, sometimes you have to be willing to sacrifice. And I will say that the church is the avenue, I believe, to get you to that point. We are in the time of Lent. And what people historically sit back and say about Lent is that we want to fast, which we talked about last week, which has been talked about for the whole entire month of February on Thursday Thirst. But the question, the point here is that the church prepares you of how to give up things, how to fast. Lent, for a lot of people, is all about fasting, all about giving up something. And so if there is nothing else that the church is going to be able to teach you to do, it's going to be able to how to live without things that aren't necessary, or even live without things that may seem to be necessary. It is a training ground. So the same things that God teaches us about how to live life is the same things that, or the same tools that we're going to use to be able to get our rights, to get fair treatment. So if you can give up Coke and Pepsi for Lent, you could definitely give up Coke and Pepsi to get our voting rights. If you can give up McDonald's and Starbucks for Lent, then you could definitely give those things up for our rights. And so I say to us, to one another, or what you would say, when people ask the importance of church and what, how it's not helping or how it is helping. The thing that is undeniable to me in this situation is that the same tools that we are being taught from the pulpit, the same tools that we are being taught from the Word of God, from the Bible, are the same tools that can be used to get us our rights, to get justice. If you can sacrifice and you can fast, then you can sacrifice and you can boycott. And so I see the parallel there. Maybe others don't. The other issue, and I'll touch on it real quick, and then we're done, is that as much as we sit here, we look at Ukraine, and as much as, and people have pointed this out, is that a large number of people from across the world go to Ukraine for education. Hundreds of thousands of people go to Ukraine for education. Over 25% of those people are from Africa and Ukraine right now. Of the foreign people who have come, over 25% of the foreigners who have come to get educated in higher education, doctors, lawyers, scientists, all this kind of things, at the collegiate level, professional level, 25% of them are from Africa. It's a large group. But yet these people are stuck during this time in Ukraine and being discriminated against from the reports, where they're not able to get out of the country. At the borders where they're trying to get out of the country, they're being separated by race, so that the Black and brown people need to go over here in this line to try to get out. You need to show all of this identification. You need to be treated in a separate way, maybe even called a couple of names, while other individuals who are not of color have easy passage. Even in a time of great despair, even in a time of emergency, the ugliness of racism still has shown its face. And so you can't escape that. And this, as much as this whole entire issue has been something that's just been a terrible sight for the world to see, even in that, you still see the racial disparities. You see it in the fact that we can't get big companies to move here in the United States when it comes to racial issues, but people who are hundreds of miles, hundreds of thousands of miles away, they can get movement and don't even have to do half the stuff that we did. Or people of color who are not from here get mistreated, even when you're just trying to save your life and get out of the country. And so it's a constant reminder that, one, racism is not a US thing. It's a worldwide thing. And two, that you're not going to escape it. Not even when you're all running for your life. Comment: people of color have an unreasonable hope that those who deny them justice will one day find them worthy. They will allow them one day to sit at the table to be seen as equal. Yeah. Yeah. That's that is one of the comments where you have people who want to have the opportunity to get what they want to get out of life, whether it be a house, car, money, an opportunity to raise your family. You have people of color who want to do that. So that's the group that I'm in. So you got the group that they just want an opportunity to be able to have certain things in life. And then you have another group who want to be just like other people. So I'm trying to say that in a nice way, but forget it. I'm going to say it in the way that's easiest. You have Black people who want the opportunity to be able to get the things out of life that they would like. I want to have a job, I want to have a car, I want to have a house, I want to raise a family, have the money to raise a family. That's their goal. I'm in that group. There's another group. They want to be just like or as close to white people as they can be. So it's not about getting the car or the house. They want what a white person has and everything like that. And so the difference of the two is, one is usually trying to be someone else. You want to be the same. Whereas the other one, I want to be who I am, be myself, but I just want all the opportunities. And so we clash. Those two groups clash oftentimes, because you have those who just want an opportunity and those who want to be like someone else. So we got a couple of comments here. There are those who, when practicing humanity, can still practice racism. Yes. I mean, there's they're not mutually exclusive. Like you're going to, I mean, if you are a person who is racist and then you're a person who's running for their life, you're just a racist person that's running for their life. You know, nothing has changed there. And the other question is, who do you see as human? And that's also a part of the whole situation. So, and that's a question that we got to continue to ask ourselves. You know, let's sit back and say, why are we so enamored by this situation in Ukraine, and yet the situation in Ukraine, when we're talking about how Africans are being treated, and not just Africans, I'm being very clear that it's black and brown, because there's people from other countries as well, from Asian countries, who are being treated and lumped into the same boat. But why is it that we are so on board with them? And then, as many people have pointed out, and I'm not bringing up anything new, many people have pointed out other countries have gone through similar situations, and yet we don't seem as interested in them. When we talk about other countries, and even in Europe, other countries in Europe, a little bit browner countries, other countries in Africa, other countries in the Middle East, when they come into similar situations, invaders are coming in unprompted. People are being murdered and killed. People are fighting for their homeland. We seem a lot less interested. And the question is why? And that's an honest assessment of what we have to ask ourselves. I ask myself that, and I sit back and I look at Ukraine, and I look at some of the countries in Africa, and I sit back and say, hey, man, it's clear to me. It's clear to me it's a racial issue. And it's not a racial issue as far as racism. It's a racial issue, I think, sometimes, that the powers that be. Look, if I'm in charge, if I was in charge, if I was the president of the United States, or I was in charge of, you know, the United States, I'm going to have an affinity towards Africa because I'm black and that is where my people come from. And so if I'm white and I know that my people came from Europe, I'm going to have an affinity for Europe. I understand that, and I don't have a problem with that. But what I do bring issue with is just the idea as a country, that we're going to be so far behind this when we have almost half at this point, but a significant group, let's just say that, of our country, who are of color. And so that when we have other locations, that we think of them the same way. So again, the main takeaway from the day that I really want to hammer home is that, one, these companies were able to move and are able to sacrifice because they saw that what was going on in Russia is unjust from their position. And they were prompted to that sacrifice by social media. They were prompted to that sacrifice by the threat of boycotts from the population. That's one. And that goes right into, for social justice, for change, for voting rights, we should be able to do the same thing here. And then two, if you want to be prepared, if you want to have those tools, it's my opinion that the church is the best place to give you those tools. Because, again, if you can give up, if you can sacrifice, and if that's what the Bible definitely teaches, not giving up and sacrifice, but knowing what's important and what's not important. Coke, Pepsi, McDonald's, Starbucks, getting that coffee every morning, going to KFC, those things are not important, and they're easily sacrificed. And that's the bare minimum that we can do. Not that I'm calling for sacrifice, not that I'm calling for boycotts of these companies, but I'm definitely saying that we need to have an honest assessment of who is with us and who is supporting voting rights, who is supporting the rights of African Americans, who is supporting the rights of black and brown people, and who is not. And when they are not, just like people put these companies on notice for Ukraine, Russia, we need to put those companies on notice here. Why can't we do that? All right. Well, hopefully that was good information, a good starter conversation. For me, I think it hit home when I saw what these companies did and how quickly they were able to move. And it was just disappointing in the fact that they can move for that, but we can't necessarily get them to move for this. And I don't blame the companies. I don't blame the companies. It's us. So is it not important enough to us to make them move for different things? All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for the comments. As always, continue to give comments to the show. This is a continuing conversation. And even after the show is over, please feel free to put comments in the comment section so the conversation can continue. Also, you can join us same place on Thursday for Thursday Thirst. And like always, we will be here every Tuesday to discuss what is current and what is going on from our perspective. Thank you. My name is Nathaniel. This is Impact 2022. Have a good one and have a good night.